Fellow Falcoholic Live patrons, what is up? Welcome to our August Falcons question and answer session for our patrons. Again, guys, thank you so much for your support. We appreciate everyone for tuning in, everyone for sending your questions, and everyone for supporting the show on a monthly basis. I know we had some folks send us questions remotely. For those of you in the chat, feel free to throw your questions in there, and we will get to as many as we can over the next hour or so. Welcome to Solaire, to Tyler Russell, Evan Birchfield. He's not a patron. What's he doing in the chat? No, he's just instigating hashtag Dave Meat. But speaking of Dave Meat, we do have some great guests for you guys tonight. First of all, Dave Meat himself, a.k.a. the Falcoholic, a.k.a. Dave Choate. Dave, how are you doing tonight?
I think the most charitable way that could be interpreted is like dog meat from Fallout.
Yeah,
and I'm gonna.
Yeah. We'll
it's
lean
an
into
endearing
that.
nickname.
Yeah, we'll lean into
I
that
think
interpretation. Yeah, really,
I'm
it
good.
could be. Yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No. This is really, it could be whatever your imagination wants it to be, and I say that knowing that I'm sure it's being taken to some dark places. But why don't you tell me how you are, so we can go ahead and move past that.
Yeah, I'm good. All the moose are wrangled. I'm getting a new fridge tomorrow. I've been living out of my college fridge for the last week and a half, so that's very exciting.
Yes, hey, I remember my college fridge as well. It was a hand-me-down from, I believe, my mom's college fridge. This is like the biggest mini. It's called a mini fridge, but this is probably the largest. It was like almost as deep as like a normal fridge, mostly because the compressor on the back was like 2 feet. Standing out about 2 feet from the actual mini quote-unquote fridge. So yeah, I understand that game. Don't relish your experience of that. So hopefully that new fridge is coming soon. So absolutely,
yes,
I know you guys were itching for that fridge talk. We got you covered on that. Also with us tonight we have Adnan Ikic at Say Which Way. Adnan, how are you doing?
I'll keep it short and sweet, unlike Dave here. I'm doing fine, guys. I'm doing all right.
You guys do work for me.
We do, yeah. We can't push it too far.
Yeah. You'd never think so. You'd never think so watching our interactions together.
Yeah.
Oh.
But thank you again, Adnan, for coming on. Enjoy your Twizzler, very on brand. To shout out Twizzlers for their generous donation of about 70 pounds of Twizzlers that I'm sure you have no chance of ever finishing, but it's always nice.
I don't know what I'm going to do with all those Twizzlers. I appreciate it from Twizzlers. I still don't know what the hell I'm going to do with all those Twizzlers.
Yeah, that's a lot of Twizzlers. That's a lot. And you clearly got a physique you're working on, so you can't. The Twizzlers is going to impact the macros. So
clearly, yeah.
Yeah. So
I can only have like one of these a week.
Yep. Yeah, it's on your cheat day maybe, but we'll make the show day your cheat day. But also with us, as you guys just saw, Will McFadden. He's on Twitter at Will McFadden. Will, how are you doing tonight?
I'm doing well, Kevin. I wanted to make the first two preseason Falcons Q&As, but Dave said he was holding the starters back for the third one.
Yeah.
So here I am. I'm excited to be out here, get a few reps in, and then hopefully grab a towel and head back to the sidelines for some R&R.
Yep, sounds about right.
Will's going to leave after 10 minutes is what he's saying.
Yeah, he's going to come in for the first series of questions and then take off. Yeah.
He's the Kyle Pitts of
count.
Yeah.
Yes, he's been dressed for every show. They didn't put him in.
Headphones on, yeah.
Oh yeah, always ready
Can't
to come in.
risk hurting the throat before the season.
Absolutely not. All right, guys. Well, I know, like we said, we have some questions in the chat already. We have some that folks sent to us on Patreon. Just some quick stuff before we get started. If you were interested in joining the Patron Fantasy League, we're closing the submissions to join like either tonight or tomorrow. So if you have reached out and gotten the link and not joined, and you want to join, you need to do that ASAP. I believe pretty much everyone in here is already in. But this is your last chance because we're going to have the draft starting on Monday. So, if you want to get in, there are still some spots left. So just go ahead and hurry up with that so we can get you in. And then we just really appreciate all you guys for your support and, being the early adopters here. I remember when it was like 2 or 3 of you guys, total that were like total patrons. And then now, we're up in the 20s. So just big shout out to all you guys and everyone for hanging out. We just really appreciate you for coming along with us. So let's get started with our first question from Solaire, a.k.a. Guy Fieri when he donates stuff. But I just really enjoy that it's both Solaire of Astora and Guy Fieri. He's really got a lot of great names going here. So his first question is which player do we think is going to become the next meme player? It doesn't have to be bad. So, examples that he is talking about is, Todd Gurley taking one for the tank, the Brooks Reed spin move, Sherrod Neesman, stealing Dan Quinn's parking spot, and that's why we never see him. So which player do you guys predict is going to be the next sort of, player that we just have to kind of, it becomes like a famous player for some sort of offbeat reason, I guess. So, yeah, I guess, go ahead.
I think if he makes the team, first of all, and if he has a chance to interview with someone after like anything, Frank Darby seems like a candidate just because he's a walking soundbite. If you like saw him at the draft, he's just full of energy. And, definitely I feel like if anyone ever like puts a microphone in front of his face, we could like get, a pretty nice soundbite from him and, turn that into a possible meme.
Yeah, that's a good one. Let's see if I can think of one.
Yeah, I think either Michael Walker or Jalen Hawkins has that in them. I feel like I keep just drawing comparisons to them because they're both sophomore year players, but both of them have really good personalities. And I just kind of feel like everybody, the answer to this question, a lot of them have already become those kind of like Calvin Ridley would be an obvious choice, but he's all over the place. Kyle Pitts is probably on the field memes. I don't know if he's off the field memes. But those are two guys I think with the personality to make a splash off the field.
Yeah, that's a good one. I was going to say, you guys went very positive with your memes. I was going to go with a negative meme, and maybe Dante Fowler's already a meme, but I think there's a chance, he could once again be, famous maybe for a whiff or something like that. And hopefully it's just one whiff and, we just kind of make fun of him for it as he has a bounce back year. But, we will, we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I think there's a lot of new faces, so it's kind of hard to predict who it might be this year. But yeah, I think those were some good ones, some good answers there. All right, so from Tyler Russell, we have he wants to know our thoughts on the salary cap. Do we have enough money to potentially sign a different backup quarterback if someone came free, or should we use the money elsewhere? Will, you look like you're itching to get a take in, so I'll let you get the first crack at this one. Yeah.
I'm just like, haven't we talked enough about salary cap all off season?
Never enough. That's
like,
what they come here for.
We're knocking on the door of the regular season. It's still salary cap. But I just checked Spotrac and Over the Cap, and Spotrac has the Falcons cap space right now at about 5.5. Over the Cap is about 7.7. Obviously, those numbers kind of come from different places. That's why there's a discrepancy there. If it's closer to the Over the Cap number, I think they will save that for flex. I think either way they save this for flexibility throughout the season. But the Over the Cap number, the 7.7, would give them probably the ability to sign 3 guys if they needed to because of injury, like 3 substantial, at least rotational guys to bring in here. If it's closer to 5.5, that's probably like 2 mid-tier guys, and then just scraps around as you need it. But either way, I don't think they make a move before the season starts. I think they're going to get a lot of those guys that get cut, the undrafted free agents. I think there's going to be a lot of turnover potentially in that pool. But I don't think they make a free agent signing unless they have to because of injury.
Yeah, I don't disagree there necessarily. I mean, I think they sort of like the roster for the most part because they really haven't gone out and added anyone off of waivers or anything like that, despite the fact that we're getting more and more players cut. I mean, I think if they do make an addition, it probably will be like, I don't think they're going to go spend like all $7 million or something on one player. Like it might be like, I would say the most likely thing would be them to add another quarterback if they like someone who gets waived. Possibly like an offensive lineman. I know like cornerback, like if Kendall Sheffield isn't healthy enough to really play and they're not sold on Chris Williamson, maybe we see another cornerback signing. Maybe tight end if they're not like in love with John Rain, even though I like John Rain quite a bit. I think it will be like more of a smaller sort of depth addition as opposed to like a starter. Maybe offensive line would be the best chance for like a starter if someone sort of shakes loose there. They decide like, all right, we need another starting quality guy. It could be a trade too, I guess. But yeah, I mean, and you sort of mentioned the flexibility. Like if they take that money into the season and they don't use it it could roll over to next year where they're still likely to be maybe not as bad of a cap situation, but still not a good cap situation. So that extra flexibility might be important. Adnan, Dave, did either of you have any takes on how the Falcons might use the rest of their salary cap space?
Yeah, to me, it comes down to, you're looking at what are your weaknesses. And I think they're probably not going to sign anybody exciting right after cuts. But to me, like Jason Spriggs, just given his summer to this point, and the fact that he's, I think, already been injured a little bit after an extensive injury history, like maybe that last guy on your offensive line is somewhere you look to upgrade. Maybe, the backup quarterback is a place you look to upgrade. Maybe you add one more guy to, the pass rush rotation at outside linebacker if you don't feel great about the numbers you've got there. I think those are the kind of options we could see. I can't see this team, like you guys said, necessarily going for anybody major at this point. But I suppose it does depend a little bit on who shakes loose, too, in the 53-man cutdowns across the league. There are some interesting names out there.
Yeah, I agree. And, there are still guys like Nick Easton and Steven Wisniewski, these sort of like fringe starters that could be additions on the offensive line if they're not confident there. But, Adnan, did you have any salary cap takes for us?
Oh, yeah. If we're going to use it, I'd much rather use it on an offensive lineman than a backup quarterback. Like, what backup quarterback is there available that you're going to spend all this money on? You're not trading for Nick Foles. That's 100%. No. Like, he's making too much money for that, more than what you're comfortable with paying for him. I mean, I'm fine rolling with Josh Rosen, provided he's not an absolute disaster.
Right.
At like $900,000, and just having him as your quarterback too, and Felipe Franks on the practice squad as a possible emergency call up if something does happen. But yeah, it's if that money is going to be used, I'd rather see it used on the interior of the offensive line, or maybe even possibly even like a swing tackle, because I don't think Jalen Mayfield is going to be good in that role if he has to be put in it.
Yeah, Mayfield looked a lot more comfortable this week at guard as opposed to his first game where he played mostly tackle. So there's definitely some hope for him to sort of, grow into that guard spot. I don't know if he'll be ready to start there, but I do like his upside there a lot better than I like, Josh Andrews. So, I mean, I figure if they don't add someone, probably Mayfield is starting by week 5, 6? I mean, at the most.
Maybe after the bye week.
Yeah, maybe after the bye week. Fortunately, saddled with an early one, but what that does mean is, it's a good time to insert a rookie offensive lineman.
I'd be fine seeing Mayfield as, even the starting left guard, provided what the alternatives are. Yeah. But I would be very, very worried if he ever has to play tackle this season, because we've seen him play tackle in training camp, and in that first preseason game, and it did not look good at all.
Yeah, I agree. So not terrific.
But we got Willie Beavers.
Yeah, we got Willie Beavers. Yeah, and Jason Spriggs. Jason Spriggs was solid too. So we got depth tackles. We'll see how that shakes out overall. But yeah, I mean those guys are hopefully not going to see the field, but.
I think I'd get a migraine if I had to watch those guys consistently be the starters of this team.
Who would you rather have starting at right tackle, Willie Beavers or Jeremy Trueblood?
Oh, I'd rather just not. I'd rather just move on.
just refuse to answer. Yeah. All right, let's get in one from O on Patreon. The mysterious O. That's all he put for his name. So very mysterious patron here. So he thanks us for putting this on. You're welcome. He says, "What are our realistic expectations for this season?" Yeah, I mean, I'll definitely give you guys to think about it for a second, but I think for me, I think they're going to end up right around like 500. Probably. I mean, I think I'm leaning more towards like the 9-8 side, but I think between like 10-7 and 7-10 is probably where they're going to land, and I would probably lean towards the middle of that range. But for me, I'm going 9-8 right now, and I think they'll probably look pretty competitive, and I think they'll be in the mix. I just don't know if, the depth is there for them to weather a full 17-game season. Like they're very thin at a few spots. Wide receiver in particular is one. The offensive line is another. On defense too. Like if they lose too many players, they just don't have the depth to really weather it, and that could be the difference between them having a playoff spot and being just on the outside looking in. But I still think they'll be a decent, like a competitive team, and probably be in the mix for the playoffs at the end. But who would like to go next with their season expectations here?
I'll hop in there. I feel like I've just oscillated all over the place, and I feel like I was really down on my expectations prior to training camp started, and then training camp started, and I realized, hey, players can get better. That's possible. And I kind of feel like seeing the reports of guys like Jalen Hawkins and Jacob Tuioti-Mariner and Steven Means, who are in new roles but seem to be at least doing somewhat well. Fabian Moreau, who I think is kind of being overlooked this training camp, but seems to be having a really good camp. I kind of think that if the defense can be any better than I thought it was going to be going into mini camp and training camp, which is to say I thought it was going to be pretty bad, even though I really like Dean Pease as a coordinator. It's just even the starting group was probably a bottom 5 starting group in the NFL. And then that's not to account for the very little depth like across the board defensively. So that's all still there. If anybody gets hurt, like this season has the chance to go downhill very quickly. But if the defense is better, if the defense is average and they're able to make some actual impact plays late in games, the types of game-winning plays that we just haven't seen the past couple of years in the fourth quarter, and defense needs to be a part of that. It can't just always be your offense. I think that this team could easily win 3 to 4 of those really kind of swing close games that just totally went against Atlanta last year. And then I think if those games happen early enough, we see this every year in the NFL. There's always 2 or 3 teams that nobody really saw coming that kind of just build momentum, and then the team kind of latches on. And usually if it's first or second year head coach, that effect is even greater because there's kind of a real momentum that's built and a belief in a new guy. That could happen this year. So I could see it being somewhere between like 11-6 if everything goes the right way. I could also see it being like 5-12.
Yeah,
which I know is
really
kind of just a cop out.
Yeah,
like that's a cop out answer. But that we don't know anything about this team. We haven't seen the starters play. Like, we know nothing.
Yeah.
So that's what I got.
I mean, in the back, the defense has looked better, I think, than anyone expected in terms of holding up, giving up only 14 points to the Dolphins starters when you just got basically all but like 1 or 2 starters, all but like 1 or 2 reserves out there for the Falcons for an entire first half. I mean, that's I think better than anyone really was probably hoping for. I think probably people were expecting this defense to sort of just get wiped up, but I mean, it's encouraging at least. All right, Dave Bossman, what's your expectations right now for the 2021 season?
Pain. No, I mean, that's a given, right?
Yeah, for sure.
It was like when Evan did his hey Evan, by the way, I'm sure you're still there. His Madden projection for the season, and the Falcons, made it to the playoffs and won 11 games. I was like, that sounds great. And then I saw they lost to Dan Quinn and the Cowboys, and I was like, man, like there's just never like an unqualified good thing with the Falcons. That said, I find myself kind of around where you are, Kevin, the not at all 500, but 500, 9 or 8, 8 and 9. And I think, to me, this team's floor, barring any serious injuries, is certainly higher than it was a year ago. I think the coaching is impressive so far. I feel like the talent on hand is good enough. I felt somewhat like that last year too, but we had some limitations on coaching. Certainly not having Julio, which we don't now, I guess, too, was a factor. But, I think they're good enough to stay in the hunt. I think they're good enough to kind of go back and forth, win some games maybe you don't expect them to, certainly lose some because they're finding their way. But, just given how top heavy this team seems to be, certainly, as Will said, very reliant on the starters. Injuries could wreck this thing. But also, given how impressive I think some of that talent is, and how much I like what Arthur Smith and company are instilling, I think they will be around a 500 team. And I think that would be, we'd all like to go roaring back into the playoffs. It would be awesome if this was 2008 all over again. But certainly just after 3 losing seasons, like just making some progress, maybe having a winning season, coming close to it, would be a big win.
Us not having to do draft takes in October is what Dave's saying.
Eric started the draft takes in like September. So yeah, I mean, it would be nice if we could wait until December to really fire up the draft machine. That would be my
if they stink and Matt Ryan does not do well, I am probably back.
Yeah. So. Yeah, the Matt Ryan slander has begun rising to almost unheard of levels, and he hasn't even taken the field yet. So I'm sure this will be a very level-headed season from the anti-Matt Ryan crowd. All right, Adnan, where are you at this season?
I will say I'm a bit more optimistic now than I was if you would have asked me the same question before training camp began. Because, before training camp begins, before you see these guys on the field, and I understand training camp, it's always going to be mostly positive reports. If you're getting nothing but negative reports from your team in training camp, you're probably going to be like the 2008 Detroit Lions. Like,
it's going to be real bad.
If it's not positive during training, that's the time when it's going to be positive and optimistic. But just like looking at, some of these performances going to training camp and seeing what they've done in the preseason, like this defense especially, if you look at it on paper, this defense isn't very good. Like, just being completely real and straight up, there's no real pass rush. The secondary behind A.J. Terrell is, questionable and unproven for the most part. Of course, Fabian Moreau is there, but, this is his first year playing with everyone else. The safeties are pretty much unproven. But then seeing the way it all came together, and not even seeing the first team, just the second teamers out there under this Dean Pease scheme, and seeing how much it worked, like how nice it was seeing that pressure, those disguised blitzes, how much it forced, some of these quarterbacks into a few of these mistakes. I definitely think the defense will be able to force more turnovers, especially more than what we've seen the last couple of years when, the defense just can't make a play for you when you need it most. I'm not saying that this defense is going to be like a world-beating top 10 defense. Like they don't have the talent for that, and they probably won't have the talent for that for at least like another couple of years. You need a couple of really strong draft cycles to build up the talent for that. But just looking at how effective the coaching has been and trusting that the coaching will be, effective like that transitioning into the season, I feel like this team could win 1 or 2 more games. I'd pick this team to win 1 or 2 more games than I probably would have before training camp began. I'll probably go as just an optimistic fan, right before the season starts, maybe like 10 wins. I think that's realistic, especially given the 4th place schedule that they're going to be facing. They're not going to be facing any like big time quarterbacks outside of, Tom Brady. I'm a big Dak Prescott fan. They'll be playing the Cowboys as well. I'm not going to sit here and list out all the quarterbacks, but it's not really a gauntlet of quarterback play that they'll have to go up against. It's a lot of younger quarterbacks as well. I'm not saying I'm definitely not picking this team to dethrone the Bucs in the division. Like that would be delusional on my end. Like this team is not better than the Bucs. But I definitely think they can compete for a wild card spot, and I feel like that's where they'll be. That's around where their ceiling is. Fighting for and maybe even winning, one of those wild card spots, especially now that the wild cards, expanded.
Mm-hmm.
So, I think the optimist in me says we'll have some playoff football for Atlanta this year. Not playoff home games, but games where they are in the playoffs.
Yeah. I think they'll be in the mix for sure with with the wild card race at the end, and I think it'll be a more entertaining season throughout as opposed to just sort of being out of it after like week 5 or something like that. But I think it'll be better than last year, and I think they'll flirt with the winning record and probably get there, even if just barely. But they still have got a ways to go, I think, before they're really in the mix as a true contender. I think 2023 is sort of what they're targeting as, like, we want to be competing for a Super Bowl in 2023, like, seriously. And you build it up, and I think 2022 will still be a good year for them, but I think they'll be a few pieces away next year, and then hopefully in 23, when they've got a more healthy cap situation, they can go out and add those couple of last sort of pieces, and then hopefully
like
be
a new
competitive.
quarterback.
Look, those are your words, okay, Matt Ryan hater. I knew you would say something like that.
No, I'm kidding, guys. I would never go toward free agency to add a quarterback. It's all through the draft.
All through the draft.
I mean, Fitzpatrick will probably be around, so we could.
He'll still be there. Yeah, he'll still be there, I'm sure. He's timeless.
I do feel like one thing that is overlooked too is, like, the one thing that I can't get on board with is people who are like, this season is going to be just as bad or even worse than it was a year ago. Like, I don't understand. They rehired folks or brought them back rather, and it was 0-5 start, 4-12 season. Like, we all saw the flaws there. I get that people weren't particularly excited by a lot of the offseason, but I do think we can count on this at least being more enjoyable than it was a year ago.
Well, if anything else, it definitely won't be as heartbreaking. I mean, all the numbers have come out where last year was a historic year for. I mean, I hate to even say this phrase, but blown leads. Like, it was they had a 99% win tile in at least 2 games. They're the first team in like a decade to lose 2 of those games. On top of that, they had like 7 games or something in which they at one point had like an 85% win tile in this, or win percent in the second half.
Yep.
And they like lost all of those games. And that's the first time it's happened since like 1985. So if anything else, they could have identical records. Well, they can't because there's an extra game, but you get my point. And it could still feel like a better season because last year was just a nightmare.
Yeah. No, and that's the thing people don't realize is, like, even last year's team wasn't that bad. Like, they got like absolutely hosed luck-wise, and luck is a part of the equation for all this stuff. And like that was not a 4-12 team. I mean, that was probably like a 7-9 team in reality, and they just blew so many leads, so many. I mean, all they had to do was fall on a football, and they would have been 5-11. So. I mean, Younghoe Koo
not
missed,
score a touchdown.
Yeah. Younghoe Koo missed like on a field goal that he generally makes. That was another last-second loss that they should have probably won. And I respect Koo for keeping the tank going. That's a true legend right there.
I understand. That kick would have, I think, sent us into overtime.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah. I'm still not picking us over the Chiefs in overtime. Like, whether or not he makes that kick or not.
Yeah.
Yeah, the Chargers game was a disaster.
Yep.
The Lions game, Todd Gurley scoring that touchdown, then the defense letting the offense go 80 yards. The Bears game where you just had I think Trubisky come in and just torch you. The Cowboys game, of course. Oh yeah, my bad, my mistake. They're all blending together.
But they were up 17 points fourth quarter and lost that game.
Yep.
It was
incredible.
Allen Robinson just like caught the ball, and I think was it Isaiah Oliver. So someone just like could not wrap him up, and he just like scored that touchdown. I won in fantasy that week.
Well, that pick went through Isaiah Oliver's hands. Remember that? It went through his hands. The dude caught it, then he fumbled it, and then the Bears got it for like another 12-yard gain.
Yep.
It was stuff like that.
They lost to Taysom Hill twice.
Yep. This is a fun podcast.
This has been a fun podcast, yeah.
It has been. But the fun thing about being a Falcons fan is, like, you want to say it can't get any worse.
I won't say that.
But no better.
Yeah.
The Atlanta Falcons are like the human equivalent to saying it can't get any worse, and then it gets worse.
Yep, which is, it always happens whenever you say that. So we're just gonna say that's
it's
not
like
gonna, we're not gonna say that. Yeah, we're gonna say like it'll probably get better. That's what I'm gonna go with. All right, so next question from SRV TECEJ, which I don't think that's a word. It's probably a acronym or something, but I don't know what you are on Patreon, SRV. So you let us know, we can call you by your full Patreon name. But he asks, best options likely to become available after cuts for backup quarterback. Yeah, I mean, the one that I'm watching is like Brian Hoyer, who I think has always sort of been like a serviceable sort of backup. Currently signed for like $1 million with the Patriots, and the Patriots probably aren't keeping Hoyer because they have Mac Jones. So that would be one I would be interested in for sure. I don't know if you guys have any guys you're sort of watching at this point.
No. I mean, I think
I would say, okay.
Go, Dave. No, you go ahead. You got an actual person.
I kind of do. I never thought I would say Nick Foles, but I'm also kind of saying Nick Foles because
if he gets cut,
cost aside, like if he does get cut, maybe the Bears keep 3, but I don't know why you would when Fields is your backup supposedly. Like there's a guy who's going to take over partway through the season. You know what you have with Dalton. You'll save some money, I think, by moving on from Foles. And as backups go, he's about as serviceable as you're going to get. I think Hoyer's another good name there, but if Foles shakes loose and they can afford to add him, I think that's the guy I have my eye on.
Yeah, yep, that's a good one.
I mean, I just don't think that unless Josh Rosen or Felipe, but probably more Josh Rosen, literally can't run your second team offense or give you scout team looks. Like I just don't necessarily know what the upside of investing in that position further is.
Right.
Because if Matt Ryan gets hurt, the season's over anyway. It really doesn't matter who you're putting in there, how much experience they have, if they're a rookie, whatever. But I just think that, again, you bring in Josh Rosen for his potential to kick the tires on him, to maybe have him in your building for a full season, so that maybe that ends up saving you a first-round pick. If you really believe in this guy and he totally turns around, that's another potential blue chip piece, first-round pick that you could use in the draft to build around Josh Rosen. So I again, unless he's bad, unless Felipe Franks is bad and they just can't even do what they need throughout the week,
right,
then maybe they go get somebody like Brian Hoyer. I just would rather see them save that money.
I'd rather just Josh Rosen play well and he stay the backup. I do have a plea for my Georgia fans out there to please not suggest Jake Fromm if and when he inevitably gets cut because he's not a good football player. So just
what about Jacob Eason?
That. Jacob, I'd much rather have Jacob Eason, to be honest with you. At least he has a cannon arm.
He does. He does. Yeah, and Tyler Russell points out at least Nick Foles has won a Super Bowl, so
I will say if Foles comes in, there will be a contingent of the fan base calling for him to be the starter because he has a Super Bowl ring.
Yes, I mean that's all that matters, Adnan, in this business. Just got to get
the only thing I'll say.
Yeah. He managed to beat the Patriots in the Super Bowl, unlike some players on the roster.
Go ahead, Dave.
Well, now I don't want to say anything.
I've left
the one thing is, you have, again, Twizzler, man. But the thing would be for me is like, we have to remember that there are a handful of serious people out there already saying maybe Franks could start, maybe Rosen can start. So like, no matter who you add, yeah, sure, the numbers and the volume grow on that, but there's always going to be Falcons fans. They would throw one of us out there before Matt Ryan if they could. So, I guess we just have to accept that no matter who's here, that's going to happen.
Yeah, it's kind of inevitable. Yeah, I like Solaire's plan. Just have Nick Foles for when we play the Patriots, and that's it. He can go out that game. Oh, the Bucks now. Yeah, exactly. So whenever for those 2 Bucks games, you throw Nick Foles out there. He's our ringer for the Bucks. And
if you can guarantee me that Foles will win you those 2 games, give him the rest of the cap space that we have.
Pay him that trade for him and pay that trade a 7th.
Pay him all that money. If you can guarantee me that he'll win me those 2 games.
Yep.
Because then I'm changing my projection to 12 wins instead of 10.
If we could just take care of the Bucks, right? Yeah.
I think if Will Grier gets cut, that would be somebody I might be interested in.
Yeah.
For real.
Yeah. That one's not bad either. I think there's a couple other names like Josh Dobbs is like somewhat interesting as like a long-term guy.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, honestly, like Josh Rosen's fairly intriguing. And Felipe Franks
Blake
is sort of
Bortles is still out there.
Look, I'm Team Bortles. Okay, I would have rather signed Bortles than Josh Rosen, but
And Tim Tebow's still out there.
Oh yeah, that's right. I'm pretty sure Solaire mentioned Tim Tebow in the chat. So
yeah, I mentioned it on the Wednesday show. It wouldn't be the first time the team signed someone specifically for ticket sales. Shout out to Todd Gurley.
Shout out to Todd Gurley. Yeah. Oh, good times. All right, moving on from the Todd Gurley discussion. All right, so from Solaire, we have where do we place in the division? So
second. I will firmly say second place, like with confidence.
Really? Okay.
I think well,
I mean, that's what I think too,
well,
but
yeah.
I'm just curious.
And not like I'm like guaranteeing it. Yeah, the Bucks are the class of the division. Nobody's touching them, not this season. I think the Panthers are still, ways away. I like what the Panthers have done in the draft the last couple of years. I'm not picking a team with Sam Darnold to really do anything. And then, you have the Falcons and Saints fighting for that second, third spot. I think with all the Michael Thomas drama and him possibly missing the first half of the season, with them going from Drew Brees, who, admittedly still wasn't the Drew Brees of old the last couple of years, but you're still going to Jameis Winston. Drew Brees could still play mistake-free football for you, and, he could still, do what you wanted him to do with the weapons around him. I think Jameis Winston will definitely he'll make more like plays for them, but he'll make way more mistakes as well. I think the Saints they're about to embark on a bit of a rebuild themselves, and they have a bunch of players on the defensive side of the ball who are either like injured or possibly or suspended. They have like a suspension on Yamada.
Yeah, on Yamada, yeah.
Yeah. So I would put the Falcons in second place, and I think that's why we'll be able to really fight for that wild card spot, in my opinion, because I think we'll have 4 wins against the Saints and Panthers this year.
That would definitely help. Yeah, I mean, the Saints are very similar to the Falcons in that they have no depth. Like their depth got absolutely ravaged by their salary cap problems. And
they'll swear to you they had no salary cap problems though.
Yeah, no. I mean, they just had to cut, like half of their depth players, so to the point where they were depending on David Onyemata to be like their primary defensive tackle, and now he's not going to be there for a while. Who knows about Michael Thomas's return? Who knows about I guess who was it that might be suspended? Is it Lattimore?
Lattimore.
Yeah,
Lattimore.
Yeah, Lattimore may be suspended to start the season. They're much thinner on the offensive line now without Nick Easton there anymore, without a lot of the guys they had before. And like a lot of the starters for these positions, other than the defensive interior, which is really bad for them. So they're very vulnerable, I think, to getting run on this season. I think the starters are still pretty good, but they're just very vulnerable to 1 or 2 injuries really derailing their season. And I think that their ceiling is a lot lower now too. And like how they won the last couple of years was, we have a great defense and we're just going to depend on Drew Brees to not make any mistakes. And we're just going to, slowly grind out these games. And that is not the type of game script that Jameis Winston will give you. Even if he's better, he's still a guy that's going to turn over the football and going to be aggressive. And that can work out for you too sometimes. But I just don't know if their system's going to work anymore.
Not to hijack the conversation or anything, but just one final thought on the Saints. And like without like Thomas and on offense, Alvin Kamara he's a monster. He's one of the best running backs. We know that. But defenses are going to key in on Michael Thomas this season. So then, who's your go-to after that happens? I guess
Callaway, right?
Callaway was fine against the Jaguars. Like, he sure as hell is not a wide receiver 1 in the NFL.
No, it's like, and like my son Traquan Smith, maybe he can be something. But I mean, I think they have a lot of wide receiver 3s right now. Maybe Callaway, if he really keeps it up, could be a 2, but I still don't think they have. And Michael Thomas, like, they desperately need him to be the 1, and like all these injuries stacking up on him. Is he even that player anymore? I'm just not sure.
So this was great because I don't need to spend any time talking about them, but I have the Saints as the number 4 team in my division.
Hell yeah.
This year.
It's a real Falcons
for all of the
fan
reasons.
right here.
I just think that if nothing else, last season kind of showed us the importance of a quarterback to the culture with New England and Tom Brady. Tom Brady takes over for Jameis Winston, an organization that really wasn't going anywhere, was just average, had the talent, but didn't live up to it, if that sounds familiar, in one player like Jameis. And then Tom Brady steps in, they win a Super Bowl. And we're all sitting here, and everybody seems to love playing there. They brought everybody back. People took pay cuts to come back and play with Tom Brady. I think Drew Brees is up there with guys like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, Russell Wilson, Matt Ryan, with the impact that they can bring to an organization. We've already seen Jameis as the focal point of a franchise, and they never really got above average. And I think that with all of the departures New Orleans had, that this is not a team that can just rely on its talent to overcome its quarterback. It's going to need its quarterback, and I don't trust that quarterback. So I have them at number 4. I have the Falcons finishing a close 3rd to Carolina in 2nd. I'm high on the Panthers this year.
All right. Let's redact that. That's a real Falcons fan comment from Kevin.
putting Sam Darnold over Matt Ryan. How dare you?
First off, I think Sam Darnold was in just the worst possible scenario with Adam Gase, who was the last quarterback to be in the worst possible scenario offense with Adam Gase, Ryan Tannehill. And I'm not saying Sam Darnold's going to turn it around like Ryan Tannehill. I am going to say that I trust the coordinator there in Joe Brady. I trust the offensive-minded head coach and Matt Rule. I think that this will benefit Sam Darnold. And that's all besides the point because they're getting the best player on their team back. Christian McCaffrey was completely out of their offense last year. And I guarantee Joe Brady came in, if I'm Joe Brady at least, my offense is being designed around number 22. And I think that they lost a lot of what they wanted to do, but I think that now that just means teams can't adjust to it. It's going to be kind of year 1 of us seeing McCaffrey in this offense. And I think that Darnold's got plenty of weapons around him. I like kind of the young defensive pieces. I think Brian Burns is legitimately like on the verge of becoming a breakout defensive player in this league. So I think all the recipe is there for both Atlanta and Carolina to maybe 9-10 wins right around there and be fighting for 2 wild card spots. It wouldn't shock me if 2 NFC South teams get into the wild card because I think that frankly the other divisions in the NFC are probably a little bit stronger top to bottom. So I could see Carolina, Atlanta, and New Orleans getting some wins off of one another, and then they've got kind of easier schedules. So I've got Tampa Bay, Carolina, Atlanta close, and then New Orleans probably like 6-7 wins.
Yeah, that's interesting because I think Carolina will certainly be better this year, but I think that offensive line is going to destroy that offense. It's very, very, very bad. I can't believe they didn't take Rashawn Slater. I can't believe they took another cornerback instead. And as much as I like, J.C. Horn, I think that offensive line is a total disaster. And seeing, it's like I don't get it. Like they literally spent a 2nd-round pick on Greg Little and ended up trading him because he was that bad. Like, they have some players like Taylor Moton, I think is very good.
I like him,
but he can't do it alone. And the investments just have not been there on that offensive line at all. I think I've seen enough of Sam Darnold with a bad offensive line in front of him to know that that's not a great recipe for him in particular. I do like Joe Brady, so I think Brady's going to do his best to sort of scheme around the offensive line, and I think Christian McCaffrey's going to have a great year. For fantasy, I'm sure he's the number 1 pick for a reason. I mean, he's probably going to get 10+ targets in the passing game every single game. I just think their ceiling as an offense is low because if they go up against defenses that can put pressure on Darnold, I think he's going to have a hard time getting the ball out. And it just depends. Like, can you keep McCaffrey in check? Because if you can, I think their offense is going to be somewhat limited with that offensive line. But I do like their young defense. I think that is a unit that's definitely on the upswing. And, Eric and I are still crying over the Falcons passing on Brian Burns. So
you're not the only ones. I was banging the table for him as well.
Yep. So this show is big fan of Brian Burns for sure. So I do like the defense. I'm just very skeptical of the offensive line and also Darnold, I guess, to that extent, particularly because I think the offensive line is going to really put a cap on his ability to do much there. And we'll see how that goes. But yeah, I mean, I don't disagree there. I think it's going to be. I think the Saints will be third and the Panthers fourth, but I think both the Saints and the Panthers will probably have like the same record. It'll just be like a head-to-head thing. But yeah, I mean, I think you could kind of shuffle those two however you want, and then Falcons at 2, probably at that 9-win-ish sort of point, and hopefully making the playoffs. We'll see. All right, let's see. What else do we got? I know Evan put a question in the chat, so we'll answer Evan's question. Even though technically you're not a patron, Evan, you're just a person on the show. So I guess you could have just asked us this, whenever. But I'll go ahead, to respect the question. He wants to know if we had to pick one undrafted free agent to make the 53-man roster, who would that guy be? So I will. I have a lot of UDFA info, so I can go last. It's in case I have to dig deep for this one, but. Yeah, who wants to take the first crack at?
Well, just so that he doesn't get stolen from me, from under me in my answer, I'll go with Caleb Huntley.
Yeah.
Just because we saw he played very, very well against the Miami Dolphins. The running back room is a lot lighter now, I think, as a direct result of his good performance, and I think he definitely has a really good chance of sticking as the fourth running back on this roster, and I'm counting Cordero Patterson as the running back 3.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good one for sure. All right, who else has got an undrafted free agent that they want to see make the roster?
Dorian Etheridge, for sure.
Yeah, that's a good one. Mm-hmm.
I think he did more than enough, even just in that first week, showing how active he can be. He's a really solid tackler. And I think just roster construction-wise, they're going to want to carry 4 inside linebackers. They really didn't go out of their way to add anybody behind Michael Walker. And I think that, especially with Errol Thompson struggling quite a bit. I don't think Etheridge had necessarily a great game, but Thompson certainly struggled in coverage. I think that really opens the door up for Etheridge to make it. And I think that not only will he make it, but he's got a good chance of not sort of being that undrafted free agent linebacker who doesn't stick around. I forget the name of the guy. I'm trying so hard to remember. A couple of years ago, he was like a big success story, and then 2 days later, he was gone. Richie something?
Oh, yeah. Oh, man, I can't remember.
I feel bad when I can't, but I can't remember his last
I always remember Jonathan Celestin and Jermaine Grace, who put on a show and then just got cut. So hopefully Dorian Etheridge isn't the latest in that line. But I agree. I think Etheridge is definitely one of the guys in the lead for a roster spot. All right, well, who's your undrafted free agent?
I mean, I definitely think both of those guys are probably the top 2 on my list. J.R. Pace is just another guy who I think has been getting a little bit of a look at safety. But, whether he makes the team, he probably is more of a practice squad guy at this point. But if he makes team, it's because of special teams, and I think he's made some good plays there. But I don't know if this has been the best kind of preseason for undrafted guys that I've ever seen, solely because the lines of scrimmage have not been amazing. And so the running backs really only had 1 game to flash. There's not really kind of like that standout young offensive lineman that's making plays, young tight ends. I would say Dorian Etheridge and Caleb Huntley right now probably have good shots.
Those are definitely the 2 favorites. Yeah.
Dwayne Johnson, I mean, is another guy name I've heard, but yeah, it's probably
I've heard the name Dwayne Johnson too a lot over the years.
Dwayne the Rock Johnson. Yeah. That would be fun for the memes. Definitely that Dwayne Johnson could make it.
That's another meme player right there.
There you go.
Going back to the first question.
Yeah. So I got to dig deep for this one, but this is from my roster projection. I have John Rain making it as the 4th tight end. And I do think Atlanta will look around the tight end market. I was kind of surprised they didn't go after Kahale Warring, who ended up getting waived, because I think he's a really interesting tight end. He ended up getting claimed by another team, but the Falcons would have been ahead on the waiver priority if they had claimed him. But the fact that they didn't go after him, I think, shows that they like what they have at tight end. I know Arthur Smith really likes Parker Hesse as well. But I think John Rain has slightly outplayed him, and Rain has also been lining up as a fullback quite a bit. So I think his versatility and his ability to play special teams too, which is another strength of Hesse's as well. I think one of those two guys is gonna make it. I'm leaning towards Rain, but Hesse could absolutely be in the mix. But I think Rain's versatility at fullback to kind of give some extra looks and be in sort of an emergency backup for multiple positions. That's valuable to have as kind of the last man on your roster. And I think Rain in the training camp practices was getting a ton of targets and catching almost all of them. So that's a guy I think I'd like to see more of. And I wonder if the team will agree and sort of keep him on the back burner this year as one of those last men on the roster. So, but yeah, this has been a decent undrafted class for the Falcons. I think we're going to see at least two make it. Caleb Huntley is one, and I think Dorian Etheridge is the other one. And then the third one, maybe John Rain, maybe a safety like J.R. Pace. But yeah, otherwise it'll be tough. I mean, Ryan Newsel, the guard, has also been impressive, but it's just going to be really hard for him to carve out an actual roster spot, considering he hasn't really... Yeah,
he's my favorite just because he has a family member or friend. I mentioned this in an article the other day that his fan group, and
at
they
News
send
Update,
highlights.
Man. Yeah.
Like I found myself thinking, like, I wish I had a family member that would stump for me this hard. I'm not sure how you read the site. So like, yeah, that's pretty awesome at least. And he has looked good. So
yeah, for sure. So definitely a lot of guys there. All right, we got time for one more. Let's go to Ollie S here with his question: what are the best and worst uniforms in the league this season? So that's
I love the LA Chargers are I think just my...
That was going to be mine. I knew I should have gone first again.
You got my guy last time though, so I got your jerseys. They're so sweet.
Yeah, those would it's tough to beat those, honestly. They look pretty great. Yeah, let's see. So best uniforms, I mean, definitely I agree. I think the Chargers are certainly up there. I've always liked the Ravens. I love the purple, and I like the black ones too. Let's see. I mean, honestly, I really like the Falcons. I love that they went back to black. I don't know if they're like a top 5 uniform, but I do like them a lot.
Adnan's gonna be mad at me for this one again, but I've always liked the at least Carolina's like color schemes. Yeah. The jerseys themselves over the years have come and gone, hit or miss, but I think that done well, like the Carolina blue, black, and like silver just looks sweet.
Yeah.
I do like those powder blue Titans ones. I think those are some of the best ones in the league. One that I don't think it's a bad uniform, but I think it could definitely be better is the Rams ones.
Yeah.
Just because those numbers just they don't fit.
Why are they shiny? Like, why are the numbers shiny? That I don't understand. Like,
yeah, and I mean the Rams. You're talking about one of the most iconic uniforms in NFL history. They're a greatest show on turf, like Blues from like way back. Yeah. But like they could have done such a better job of like. I know they're trying to modernize it, but I felt like they were just doing too much with it.
Yeah, I mean, the Jags still have the worst, right?
Yeah, probably. I do like the all black 49ers and Cardinals jerseys. Those
anything all
cool.
black. I'm just a sucker for that, I think. But
I'm not a huge fan of the Jets either.
Yeah.
Like, I just don't like that
the Jets,
color green.
It's really hard to make that color green look good, for being honest.
I think the Rams and the Eagles kind of fall in the same category of like they've had some of the best uniforms ever. If you look back, and like now they're so far below that generally that, I would say they're maybe the biggest disappointment, if not the worst. The Jaguars are probably the worst.
Yeah, but the Chargers, they did such a great job of just like all of their uniforms are just so nice, and they did a great job of just like modernizing the look, not doing too much. And I remember even the reveal video. I don't remember what it was specifically, but I remember watching it, and I'm like, this is so fucking good.
Just their social media team and personality is so cavalier. Like it's just, like do whatever you want with this. We don't care. We're just out here having fun and like making content and everything. And I think that really resonates in 2021 from like a brand where it's like, look, we're just going to do what we think is awesome. And like, we're just going to not have like too much of a give two shits about it really. And they just kind of put it out there. But to your point with the uniforms, like even the small things of the lightning bolt as like the leg stripe and then accentuating that. So on their powder blues, it's all powder blue, but that lightning is like bright yellow and it just pops, but it's really clean looking. It's not too much, but the little accents are the perfect color to accent whatever the main color is. And it's just enough of like whatever the one part of the accent is to be a significant part of the outfit without being too busy.
Yeah, and that's what the Rams were going for with the numbers, but you can tell that they tried way too hard with it, and as a result, it just doesn't fit. And because like the uniforms aren't bad outside of that, and I even like the little like horns on the helmet. I think that's really cool. But you just can't take your eyes off the numbers. That's the issue with it. And one thing that I think the Chargers definitely have going for them, that uniform reveal came perfectly for this new Justin Herbert era. Where, you're talking about there are some teams where you correlate their uniforms as like loser uniforms because the team doesn't like win. And then like you have that bit of a rebrand. I know the Atlanta Hawks had the same thing in the NBA where they had those triangle pattern like jerseys, which I think were like fine. A lot of people hated on them, but they made the playoffs once with those jerseys, twice with those jerseys. And, they were a very bad team the last 2-3 years of them. And now with like the Trae Young era, they like went to a brand new like uniform, another really nice uniform look from like that incorporates modern style to like a classic old look. I really like all of the Hawks jerseys. And that's correlated with like Trae Young and like now a winning brand. So now those uniforms are going to be remembered far into the future as, these are like winning culture uniforms. I think the Chargers are on that same trajectory.
Yeah.
It makes NBA Eastern Conference Finals once. These jerseys are going to be remembered throughout time. Put them in the time capsules. The dynasty has been
100%. And they're really nice jerseys, and it's not going to be the only Eastern Conference Finals.
Have the Chargers actually unleashed their All Blacks yet?
Do they have All Blacks?
That's in the scheme. They've got an All Black with, I think, again, like a yellow, but I think it's like a slimmer lightning bolt. It was like, whoa, when these drop, like,
I'm excited about that.
I might have to go get a jersey.
Yeah, I'm into that. Yeah, those. I mean, the Chargers, I think, are definitely, if not number one, close to number one. So
I'll also give it to us. We went super in depth about like specifics and like uniform design.
This is very pro uniform talk show.
Like you'd think, I would think, all right, like, Chargers favorite, Jaguars least favorite, but we like went like into the weeds about like all of these
individual
uniforms.
details of the uniforms.
And Evan is just pulling his hair out at the fact that he's not able to be here for this conversation right now.
I know this would have been his question, so we'll have to make sure to get him on the next one. But guys,
not ask that.
Guys, thank you so much for tuning in. That is a little over an hour now, so I want to let my guests get back to their evenings, but we appreciate all of you guys for tuning in. All of you, I know we had some new patrons join us this month. We appreciate all of you guys. Looking forward to playing fantasy with those of you in the fantasy league. We're just thanking you guys so much for coming on. Like I'm sure you guys know, but just in case you don't, we'll be back on Sunday night at 7:30 p.m. Eastern for our final play-by-play show covering the Falcons versus the Browns. We will allegedly see some starters, so that'll be exciting, so check that out as well. And if you're watching this on YouTube after it's gone live and you want to become a patron, get in on this patron action, the link is patreon.com/Falcoholic live. We appreciate everyone for joining up with that and helping us out there. Before we go, want to thank my guests. First of all, we have Adnan Ikic. He is at Say Which Way on the Twitters. Adnan, anything that you're working on you'd like to plug?
I'm last article in that series looking at the greatest moments in Falcons history. That's pretty much written up, and that'll go pretty soon. So check that out and vote for your favorite Matt Ryan-centric moment.
Yeah, definitely, guys. Check that out. That's coming to a close very soon, so get your votes in now. Also with us tonight, Will McFadden. He is at Will McFadden on the Twitters. Will, anything you're working on you want to let the people know about?
Yeah, another ending of a series is happening tomorrow. The last of the Atlanta Jersey History series will be dropping 96 to 99, I guess, or the last one. Grady Jarrett, not the best number 97 of all time. I guess you're going to have to read to find out why.
There you go. That's a great tease right there. Great tease. Check that out for sure, guys. Also with us tonight, the Falcoholic himself, Dave Choate. Dave, anything that you're working on you'd like to plug?
I'd like to plug all the work you guys are doing. I thought your last roster projection was really good, Kevin, and worth reading. I think the ending of those two series, which have been awesome, are worth checking in on. And if you're into watching a man unravel in real time, watching a final preseason game, you can check me out on Twitter Sunday night. So
yes, exactly. Definitely stay tuned to that to the Falcoholic's Twitter handle for all of the best, most reasoned, not at all silly preseason takes. No, it's the opposite of that, really. No. Yeah, the total opposite. But that's why you follow it. You don't follow it for the reason takes. You follow it for the quarterback scrambling, analogies. So. That's why I follow it anyway. But I guess you probably also get Falcons news and stuff there too. But it's mostly for the Matt Ryan scrambling like a baby gazelle or something. But guys, I'm Kevin Knight at Falcoholic Kevin on Twitter. Like Dave just mentioned, my roster projection came out today, so you can check that out. And just catch us on Sunday for our next live play-by-play. We also have a little secret plug here at the end for those of you that are tuning in. Next Wednesday's Falcoholic Live. Hall of Fame Falcon Morten Anderson will be joining us for at least part of the show, so you guys can look forward to that. We're definitely gonna patrons. If you guys have questions, definitely send us your questions for Morten on Patreon, and we will try to get him some of those great questions as well. But until Sunday, guys, for every one of us, thank you again for supporting the show. We will talk to you guys next time on the Falcoholic Live. Have a great night, folks.